All right, welcome to the SnydeReport. I am your host, Gary Snyder. With me today is not Taylor Swift. Sorry.
Fortunately for you.
Everyone that is tuned in expecting to see Taylor Swift is getting Colin Allred instead, former NFL player, former congressman, and current U.S. Senate candidate in Texas. Welcome, Colin.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I appreciate you for having me. I'm
Do you ever
sorry I don't have an album to announce for you.
That's okay. I mean, I've seen enough of it already.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, Colin, we have you on today because the redistricting in Texas is taken a turn after turn after turn.
Yeah.
And it looks like the special session is going to end maybe tomorrow. You know, from where I'm sitting, it looks like maybe the walkout is going to end, and it looks like eventually here that those district maps will pass. And that's even reached up to here to us in Indiana, where they're trying to, go after, Frank Mervan and Andre Carson. They're just trying to squeeze anything they can get. Your thoughts on the whole process and what's going on?
I mean, I'm just disgusted by all of this. And after I played in the NFL, I went to law school and became a civil rights lawyer with a focus on voting rights. And when I did voting rights work, I never asked anybody who they were going to vote for. And I just wanted to make sure that they could vote. Mm-hmm. And I've spent my life fighting in my career, fighting against this kind of just BS where you just use whatever means you can to silence the voices of literally millions of Texans. And every single district that's being targeted is a majority minority district. And they're going to try and take away the voices of communities that have fought literally for decades. In some cases, had people die. Real blood was spilt to get the progress that was made, and to have a chance to have the opportunity to elect representatives of their choosing. And so, and as a somebody who served in Congress, it's also just for me bizarre. I mean, these lines are so crazy, and these communities will be so divided up. I don't even know where these members of Congress will put their district offices. I don't know how they'll represent districts like this that are carved up this crazily. I mean, how would you know how to represent a community when it's divided up and you have so many different places that are being thrown in together that aren't even communities of interest, right? And so just from a straight up democracy perspective, this is crazy. And as you said, it's got repercussions all around the country. We're going to see a race to the bottom everywhere. And what I want to say to everybody who's listening to this is that it doesn't have to be this way. When I was in Congress, I helped pass a bill out of the House of Representatives called the For the People Act that would ban gerrymandering and would force every state to create their own nonpartisan independent redistricting committees that would draw their congressional maps, right, for every state. And so then you'd have experts who are trying to keep communities contiguous, trying to have communities of interest piled together. Instead of politicians picking their voters, you'd have voters picking their politicians. That's the way it should be. We couldn't get it through the Senate because of the filibuster and because a couple of folks at that time were unwilling to help us reform that. But
I don't want to name names.
But yeah, you know exactly who
Kristen
I'm talking
Cinema.
about. Yeah. And, and I was part of a press conference with the Congressional Black Caucus where I was, calling on those senators to help us reform the filibuster to pass this, knowing that if we didn't, there was a chance that things like this would happen. And so along with the Supreme Court, the Senate deserves a lot of the blame for why we are here, but we can fix it through laws. We can pass laws to fix this. And so it doesn't have to be that every state in the country that has one party rule just pulls off whatever kind of crazy redistricting that they can. We can have a different process.
When you take a look at the process, here in Indiana, some of the maps that I've seen have Andre Carson's district going from Indianapolis all the way to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you take a look at what's happening in California today with Gavin Newsom and the California Democrats announcing that, they're not going to unilaterally disarm, you hate to support that, but you almost have to now.
No, that's right. I do think that we have to fight fire with fire. And, listen, the last time that we had a majority in the Congress, we passed a law to say that you couldn't do this, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's to be expected that the next time we will as well. And certainly when I'm in the United States Senate, I will bring up this bill and pass it. And listen, I've talked to a lot of Republicans, Gary, who don't like this. And also just nonpartisan people who don't think that this is how business should be done, right? And right. I just think it's a lot of common sense for a lot of people is, well, shouldn't districts just be drawn based on, communities and shouldn't they just have like, so that this area of Dallas, for example, has a member of Congress who's representing them, instead of having it drawn all the way out into East Texas, into parts of our state that really, have very different needs from their member of Congress, right? It's hard to even represent a district like that. Like, how would you, and so I do think that in some ways, as bad as things are, you can say sometimes it's darkest before the dawn, and that maybe we'll have a real conversation in this country now about that gerrymandering has to end, and that this process that we've been in for now a couple decades that's culminating here is no longer acceptable.
Colin, can you hold through a quick break?
Sure.
You're listening to the SnydeReport with Gary Snyder. We'll be right back. All right, this is the part of the SnydeReport where we thank our sponsors, and we have a growing list. So let's start with Robin Winston. Robin has been there when we first sent out our first email, 147 subscribers. We're now over 108,000. So thank you, Robin Winston, and helping us get the podcast going in the right direction. Next up is our good friend, former Congresswoman Jill Long Thompson. Her book, Across the Aisle, Why Bipartisanship Works for America. Get that anywhere you buy your books. Also, former two-term governor, two-term U.S. Senator Evan Bayh. Evan has been a sponsor of the newsletter, now jumps on board with the podcast. Congressman Andre Carson. Congressman Carson has been there from the start. We're glad to have him over here on the newsletter now. He needs your help to win re-election next year, so make sure you support Congressman Carson. Next up, State Representative Cherish Pryor. Cherish has been there from the start on the newsletter, joining us on the podcast now. So is State Senator Greg Taylor. I want to thank Senator Taylor for all of his support through the years. Next, we have a couple of new sponsors. First up is Indiana Citizen. You want to check out their new project, One Heartbeat Away. Do Christian nationalists have an agenda for Indiana? All you have to do is look at the lieutenant governorship, and you can see right away that they do. So thank you, Indiana Citizen. Next up is Jump Laundry. You can visit them at jumplaundry.com. They have home pickup. They do your dry cleaning, wash and fold with, I might add, no judgments, and next day service. So if you're in a crunch for time, you don't want to do your own laundry, get a hold of Jump Laundry at jumplaundry.com or at 317-740-5011, and they will take care of all of your laundry needs. Welcome back to the SnydeReport. I am your host, Gary Snyder. We are speaking today with Colin Allred, U.S. Senate candidate in Texas. You are an announced candidate for U.S. Senate. You outperformed the top of the ticket last year. You're I'm gonna guess, be in a pretty star-studded Democrat primary. How do you like your chances?
Well, I've always approached running for office the same way, which is that whether it's a primary or a general, I want to tell folks, who I am, what I want to do, and I'm going to try and earn their vote. And that won't change for me no matter what happens in terms of primary or anything else. One thing I'm really focused on in this election is really laser focusing on working people and the cost of living that is holding so many folks back. Because that's the way I grew up. I was raised by a single mother, was a public school teacher. We didn't have a lot of money. And I know exactly that anxiety that's produced by not knowing if you can afford your bills for the week or for the month. And when we're in a situation where inflation has been too high, and I think the policies of this administration are raising inflation, particularly kind of the chaotic tariff policies, but also this bill they just passed is going to raise folks' costs on their electric bills. It's going to kick a lot of people off their health insurance, all just to cut taxes for the rich. And, in the last election, a lot of working people were promised that somebody was going to be on their side. And I don't blame them for believing that and thinking, well, maybe I should vote that way. but they were lied to. And so I want to go to working people. I don't want to ask them to come to us. My mom, with the best will in the world, could not have gone to very many political rallies because she was working 2 jobs and she had to watch me. And so we're trying to do as much as we can to get into communities, to be accessible to folks where they are, or to meet them where they are. I'm trying to, do some time working on the job with some folks. I was just working at a restaurant in Denton the other night. Call it the Juicy Pig. You're working behind the counter
I
there.
bet they had some good food, though. I bet they
It
did.
was excellent. Great food, great smell. I think my clothes smelled good even when I left, But trying to do things like that where we can just show folks that not only do I get it, but that I want to go to bat for them on these issues. And I think that's the formula not only for primaries, but that's what we have to do and to make sure we win here next November.
A very contentious Republican primary shaping up between what is probably one of the more corrupt attorney general politicians in the country and John Cornyn. Paxton seems to be up a little bit. Any preference on who you would prefer to run against?
I mean, I think they're spending a lot of time talking about the president and seeking his approval. I don't see them talking at all about Texans.
Not at all.
And I mean, listen, the way folks campaign is often how they're going to, serve. If you want somebody who's only focused on, one person in their party instead of 30 million Texans, then this is what we're going to see from these folks. I mean, I find it kind of pathetic, just the extent to which this has become just this groveling, when Texans have a long history, man, a long history of independent leaders who would tell the White House to go, shove it, man, and who would look out for us first. And this was, bipartisan, folks who would think, listen, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, but I'm a Texan first. And we've just gotten completely away from that. And we've gotten to the point where these folks are just so spineless. And that's the one thing I really can't stand, because I have a lot of respect for my friends on the other side who are true conservatives, who actually believe what they have to say. We won't agree all the time, but I can at least respect the positions that they're taking. I don't have a lot of respect for people who just grovel and who go with the blowing of the wind in any given moment. You got to stand for something. And what I see from them on the Republican side is that neither of these folks, they're either too corrupt or too weak to represent us.
Yeah, I ran for Congress a few years ago against a guy by the name of Jim Banks, who's now a U.S. senator, and just a horrible. And he's changed completely from when he was, a Mike Pence Republican,
principal conservative, I guess you would say. Yeah, no, I've been dying for somebody to be a real conservative to step forward. I mean, it's like there's only a couple left, really.
Quick question before we let you run. I know you're pressed for time. NFL season's about ready to kick off. I would be remiss if I didn't get your Super Bowl champion this year.
I think the Ravens are going to break through. I think the Ravens have a good defense. I think Lamar is, at any given day, the most electric player in the league. Derrick Henry has added a huge,
he's a beast.
Just like, I mean, you played safety, I played linebacker. Can you imagine having to tackle Derrick Henry all day? Like, that'd be a long day at the office, man. And they got a great coach. And I just think sometimes, when you knock on the door, you break through. If they don't, I still think in the AFC has got 3 or 4 great teams with the Bills. Obviously, the Chiefs are always going to be around there. And even Denver is looking really good, On the NFC side, I mean, the Eagles are probably still the class of the conference.
Defending champs.
Yeah, they keep having good drafts and bringing in talented players. But it's very hard to repeat. As you've seen, and we've all seen over the years. And so my kind of hope is for the Cowboys and for the Texans. The Texans in particular had a down year last year. They've got a great young quarterback. They got a great young coach. I played against their coach when we were, we were division rivals. I was with the Titans. He's with the Texans, D'Amico Ryans. And so they had a down year. I think hopefully they can come back. And the Cowboys, I mean, they got to figure out what they're going to do with their best player. You can't let Micah Parsons go,
No.
But you also, at some point, you got to bite the bullet and say he's the best player, maybe, in the entire league on defense, and he deserves to be compensated that way, So,
well, at least up here in Indianapolis, we have a quarterback battle for the 2 lowest completion percentage quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. So, whoopee.
When Richardson was coming out, I thought he was an absolute monster, in terms of his athleticism. Maybe he can put it together, though.
Stay healthy.
Yeah. I mean, y'all were, I played against Peyton for a long time, and and then you had Luck,
Andrew Luck.
and so you've been spoiled.
We have, and now it's been rough.
Yeah.
Colin, where can people support you, give you money, all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. If you want to get involved, go to colinallred.com. Appreciate you for having me on, Gary. And yeah, let's.
I'm Gary Snyder. He is not. He's not even Taylor Swift. He's Colin Allred. This is the SnydeReport, and we are out.